Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, friends, enemies, and comrades, I hope you're doing well on this Saturday. Maybe Sunday, wherever you are. If you're in Kenya, it's probably late. Karibu sana, karibu sana. This is Kenya Revolutionary. For another station, today it's going to get interesting. As you can see, the topic is Okiya Omtata, Morara, IEBC issue, Hanifa, Boniface Mwangi are all a distraction. Hashtag Occupy State House. Let's get to it, okay? Now, again, I'll break down what this all mean before you, Okiya Omtata fans or whatever the case is, start getting on here and telling me otherwise. There's a reason why I'm saying this man is a distraction. And I won't put past him saying that he might be on Ruto's pockets. Maybe not, maybe he is. Karibu sana Labani Misiani, I see you. Karibu, karibu, karibu. Thank you very much. Tuingie katika mada. Before we get to the mada, let's see the news of the day. There's so much happening today. But before we get to it, you know the first order of business. If you're just getting in, the first order of business is what? Like the video. Hata kabla hujafikiria. Like the video. Hit the like button, okay? The second order of business is what? If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Subscribe. Share with your friends. Tell about your friends in your political WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups and all that stuff. Mufanye hivyo, share, like, comment, and do all the good stuff. Amani aje. Sawa. Tuanze na mambo inaendelea. There's so much news to cover, then we shall get to the mada, the main mail, which is Okiya Omtata, Morara, IEBC issue, Hanifa, Boniface Mwangi are all a distraction. And I'll tell you why. That's what we are going to address later. But let's get to the news of the day. We'll start with this whole brouhaha about IEBC. Now, let's not lose focus here, okay? Because yesterday I explained to you why this IEBC thing is being delayed. The whole of December, the whole month of December is going to be just wasted by the legislative body who are supposed to take part in this nomination process of the IEBC commissioners. But Wetangula, in his Solomonic wisdom, decided that they should have a recess until January, somewhere there, okay? Which leaves us with basically 1 year and 8 months to reconstitute the IEBC. That itself is a process, okay? Because they have to agree upon the nominees, vote for the commissioners and the chairperson. You know the deal. That takes a process. They won't do it with the efficiency that they did when they were impeaching Rigathi Gachagua. Don't think about this because they know that the ground is hostile. And as soon as we have the IEBC commissioners, there are a bunch of people who will try to recall their local MPs. And these MPs have the keys to this. So they are going to delay the process. Karibu sana Clean Black Sneakers. I see you. Greetings. Nice seeing you. Nabani na kuona. Eti Okiya Omtata for president. I'll get to that. So yeah. So these guys know that they are in danger. That's why they are dragging their feet on this whole process of choosing the IEBC commissioners. But that's not where I'm going with this. I'm just simply saying, before I get to the main meal, I'll get to the news first. I'm just saying, for the 8 months, 1 year and 8 months that we have window that we can legally petition to remove or recall a senator or an MP, it's not a lot of time because the whole process of reconstituting the IEBC, you know, for us, for those members of parliament who belong in political parties and have political party affiliations, coalitions, to agree upon a nominee, it will take time. It will take time. I'm not saying it will take time because the process is by law a protracted one. It will take time because of the egos that are involved within the coalitions. You see, everyone is pointing their finger at Kalonzo Musyoka. Some people are saying the president behind it. Nevertheless, we know that process to reconstitute the IEBC will take time. And once they do that, if there's any group of people, karibu sana Chief Negus, if there's any group of members of any constituency that want to remove their local MP, that's also a process. Okay, because you have to petition, you have to have enough signatures, they have to verify those signatures. And what makes you think that the newly constituted IEBC will be able to undertake that process? Because they will come up with every flimsiest reason not to do this, because they're probably, this IEBC that's going to be the constitution will be probably friendly to the members of public, friendly to the members of parliament, who are in turn friendly to the president. They don't want to put in a referee that will give them a red card. Hear what I'm saying? So do not hold your breath. That's why I'm saying this whole IEBC issue is a non-starter. It's just a bunch of noise. It's a distraction. Just as I say today, for those of you who know I have publicly endorsed Okiya Omtata, but I'm saying today, Okiya Omtata announcing his presidential bid at this juncture of history, knowing very well that we do not have an IEBC, and if we do have one, it will be comprised of Ruto's stooges, because they already changed the law. If you don't remember, I never heard Okiya Omtata talk about this. The law, the IEBC Amendment Act, which gave Azimio, ODM to be exact, UDA, KK, Kenya Kwanza side, to pick their own commissioners of their liking, nominate. Okay, so either way you look at it, this is a skewed, flawed process in which they are going to choose the commissioners who are most likely going to be friendly to Ruto and friendly to the two coalitions who are at the moment leading the country. Because what's left of Azimio? It's ODM, which is the most influential political party within this Azimio coalition. What is left of Kenya Kwanza? UDA, which is the most influential within the Kenya Kwanza coalition. You see where I'm going with this? So for Okiya Omtata, for a man who has been standing up for Kenyan rights, and I'm not going to put all that burden on his shoulder, but he should know better as someone who has been on the battleground fighting for the rights of the majority of Kenyans. He should know better to announce his presidential candidacy, knowing that the process already is flawed. So I urge you, Mr. Okiya Omtata, if you're going to watch this video, withdraw from bidding in 2023 unless Ruto is removed through a people's popular revolution. Occupy State House. Hashtag popular, occupy what? That's the theme of the night. Let's get to the news of the day. Before we get to it, I see James Mwangi say, Ruto must go, Ruto must go. Government does not want IEBC now. They want it to be made in 2026. Absolutely. Laban Misiani, I see, is saying the first assignment will be to do by-elections. Yes, the first assignment will be to do by-elections. Now, can you imagine by the time they reconstitute this IEBC, choose the commissioners and the chairperson, if they bring in some signatures, I don't know, 1,000 or 1,000,000 signatures from a constituency, telling them that they want to recall an MP and the process has to be done. Then they tell them they have to choose a new representative. It will take a process. 1 year and 8 months might not be enough. And they're pushing and delaying it, knowing that when it reaches 2026, there will be not enough time. August 9th, 2026 will not be enough time to actually recall these MPs. That's the trick. That's why for people like Okiya Omtata, who know and are crazy about the Constitution should know better than say they're running for president in 2027, knowing that the IEBC and the law that constitute that IEBC is unconstitutionally made and it favors a certain coalition. That's why I'm holding my support for Okiya Omtata. I'm actually withdrawing it for now until further notice. Until I hear Okiya Omtata say Ruto must leave the state house. Ruto has to be removed through a popular revolution. Then, once Ruto leaves, that's when we have to reconstitute the IEBC, and then we have a fresh elections of all representatives from the executive branch of arm of government and the whole legislative branch of government, governors and MCAs until the ward level. Okay, that's what I'm saying. All this Okiya Omtata, sijui nani, what's that, Wajakoya, sijui watu watawe, these are nothing but destruction. And I believe Ruto might be behind this because it only favors Ruto. Let's get to the news before I get to the main topic. Let me get to the news. Mko ready? Aya, tuende kazi. Again, like the video. If you haven't subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. Quickly. Tukiendanga. Mkae mstari wa mbele. All right, let's go. Here we go. Tuanze kazi.
Office of the President, Dennis Itumbi, now says that his boss, President William Ruto, is not to blame for the pending recruitment of new IEBC commissioners for more than 2 years now. Itumbi has instead put the which he says moved to court to stop the hiring of new IEBC commissioners after its nominee to the IEBC selection panel was rejected by the Azimio coalition. However, political and legal experts have termed this as a lame excuse, as NTV's political affairs reporter David Muthoka now tells us.
A day after Supreme Court Judge Isaac Lenaola blasted President William Ruto and members of parliament over the protracted recruitment of new IEBC commissioners, more than 2 years after the helm of the country's electoral body fell vacant, Ruto's closest ally, Dennis Itumbi, has come out guns blazing to defend the head of state. Itumbi, who now serves at the office of the president as the head of special projects and creative economy, took to X on Saturday afternoon to state that his boss is not to blame for the delay in the hiring of all 7 IEBC commissioners that has seen several constituencies and wards without representatives and electoral boundaries yet to be reviewed since March 2012. Itumbi posted, and I quote, "In March 2023, President William Ruto demonstrated his readiness to constitute the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, IEBC. Therefore, the claim that he is deliberately delaying the formation of the commission is inaccurate." Itumbi continues, "However, the situation changed with the National Dialogue Committee process. Kalonzo Musyoka's Wiper advocated for Mwangi to join the panel, while the minority parties in Azimio supported a on 26th July 2024, an election was held. Wiper candidate Mwangi lost to Augustus Muli of the National Liberal Party. Augustus got 17 votes, while Koki of Wiper got 7. He concludes that this disagreement led to a court case. Currently, there is a court order in place preventing any further action on this matter until it is resolved. Once the legal issues are settled, President Ruto is prepared to take the necessary steps. End of quote. However, political analysts and legal experts, including the former director of the Committee of Experts that drafted the current constitution, Dr. Ekuru Aukot, have termed Itumbi's response as the lamest of excuses.
I think that's why the judge was a little bit miffed. I give an example. When something which is actually the diversion is rushed through in a very high speed, it's something serious, little attention is paid to it, and you will start creating excuses.
The two saying that had Ruto wanted to reconstitute the IEBC, new commissioners would have already been hired.
Subsequent to the meeting and the signing off of the bill that was done this morning into law establishing the IEBC, we have agreed to bring the country together for the purposes of working on the issues that are of priority.
President William Ruto continues to violate the constitution because he has compromised parliament. Yes, he is compromising all the independent commissions. So we have a dysfunctional government as we speak.
Veteran political analyst Macharia Munene now fears that the delays may be part of a sinister plan to extend the stay of elected leaders, including President William Ruto, in their offices beyond 2027.
We already have, was it an MP or a senator, one of them, who was saying, oh, let's change the constitution so that parliament runs for 7 years, and so does the presidency. We have had some prominent people, extremely rich people, suggest maybe should do away with these things, so that somebody can run the country for more than 20 years. And you say, now, is this an accident?
4 IEBC commissioners, otherwise referred to as the Cherera 4, resigned from office 2 years ago, while the other 3 commissioners, led by former IEBC chairperson Wafula Chebukati, retired after their non-renewable 6-year terms ended at the end of 2022. David Muthoka, NTV, Nairobi.
Okay, so hold on for a minute. Pause. Hold your horses. Hold your horses, ladies and gentlemen. Hold your horses. Do you know why I'm telling you that? Now, you see Dennis Itumbi is, and they're playing this cat and mouse game with Ruto. I'm sorry. Dennis Itumbi, who is part of Ruto's Ninio, they're playing Kenyans, this ping pong game between Kalonzo Musyoka and Ruto. Remember, these two folks, Ruto and Kalonzo Musyoka, they agreed upon. Remember, this is part of the guys who signed the NADCO nonsense, okay, at Bomas. They were the ones who were talking about the NADCO stuff. Karibu sana, brother Ninio. I will bring you in whenever you're ready. Let me just put the Ninio for you. Wangira. There's the link for you if you want to get in. Please do the doings. So here's the thing with me. Here's my thing. Ruto and Kalonzo Musyoka, Raila Odinga, and the rest of these politicians, charlatans, they signed what was known as NADCO report. Now, the NADCO report, before even they met at Bomas, there was a judge who said that the NADCO thing is not anchored in law. It's not supported by the Constitution. So the president should go ahead and constitute the IEBC. But by then, I think it was a minority leader or majority leader by then, Okiya and I was breathing fire, talking about if they fail to include the Azimio coalition in by adopting the NADCO the new recommendations, then we shall not have peace. I played the video yesterday. I can play it again for the sake of everyone. And this is what led to those negotiations. And they both signed on that NADCO, and the IEBC amendment bill, which is now an act, which Raila went up and signed with Ruto, is something that they conjured up at Bomas. And now they cannot even agree on the commissioners. So you see these two folks, these two parties, these two coalitions who are really one, who make up the political elites, they're playing these games. And they're dilly-dallying because, as I mentioned yesterday, they have 1 year and 8 months until they become immune from being recalled. That's why they're delaying this game. And but anyway, let me bring in Mr. Jared Wangira to give us his take on what's happening, because I see there's a lot of blame game going around, but the truth is both parties are as guilty as charged. They want to delay this thing. And to me, honestly, to be honest with you, this IEBC thing is a non-issue, because whether you have the IEBC today or tomorrow, these people are going to make it in such a way that you are not going to be able to remove them, and they're going to make it, design it in a way that 2027 Ruto shall be elected. Karibu, Mr. Wangira, start wherever you want to start.
Oh, how are you?
I'm doing good, thank you, sir. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. Oh, I agree with you that, when the NADCO process was going on, somebody moved to the High Court, and, there was a High Court judgment that said that, Kenya could not be held at ransom because of the NADCO process then, because it was still a process. And it okayed the President William Samoei Ruto to put in place, it was not even putting in place, because there was already a panel that had been constituted by William Samoei Ruto. So that panel was okayed to go ahead, and appoint, and nominate, names that would go to becoming commissioners of the IEBC. But, I don't know what really happened, because, William Samoei Ruto and his government seem to have ignored that particular judgment, because they never implemented it. Because the impaneling panel was in place, what the impaneling panel needed to be done at that particular time was to be empowered financially, so that, it could have proceeded with its function, perhaps something that was never done, and it's the reason why it never moved ahead, to conduct interviews for those people who wanted to become commissioners of the IEBC. Now, going forward, then there was the NADCO report, and there was a bill that came out of the NADCO report, the famous bill that was signed, at the KICC. Then after that, the process of, coming up with a new panel started. And that's now where another dispute came up, because, Wiper, they are what we call small parties, as the mere small parties, that constitutes Wiper and 18 others. Wiper, I think Wiper and over 25 other parties, that constitute, small parties within Azimio. So, they say that, the two people, are all called Muli. There's Muli the lady, then Muli the guy. So Muli the guy, I believe belonged to a small party called Liberal Party of Kenya, something like that. And Koki Muli, was being fronted by, Kalonzo Musyoka. That's what I got it. So, it's being said that, when they went, to vote on who should represent the small parties, majority of membership of the small parties, who are 17 in number, voted for the Muli the guy. Then, Koki Muli got only 7 votes out of the entire. And, it was there that, Wiper moved to court, and I don't know, I don't seem to have the, the real what the determination of the court, but I think it okayed, the appointment of Koki Muli to the panel to the panel. Sorry, but then there's this other gentleman, Muli, the guy. Now he has moved to court, challenging, or the incorporation of Koki Muli into this particular panel. And I tend to believe that Muli, the guy, to me, I believe he's a puppet of William Samoei Ruto. And to where I stand, I believe that he's just being used by, the powers that are to prolong this process. And I remember writing today on my Facebook page that, I don't think that William Samoei Ruto is keen to see that, we have elections in 2027. We have looked at the dynamics and that, on the ballot, this guy cannot win. So I say that, William Samoei Ruto is likely to do to us a Joseph Kabila. When I say that he's likely to do to us a Joseph Kabila, when Joseph Kabila was president of Congo DRC, imagine even when his term was coming to facilitated, the electoral or the electoral body in Congo DRC to undertake the electoral process. And there were a lot of noise, and I believe the Catholic Church in Congo DRC came out strongly. You remember there were protests all over Kinshasa, where people were protesting that election must be conducted within time, and the guy never seemed bothered, and because he had held the constitutional court in Congo DRC, the constitutional court in Congo DRC was captive to Joseph Kabila. So what they did was they went to the constitutional court in Congo DRC and they procured, an opinion from that court that, that the elections in Congo DRC could be prolonged for, I think, another 2 years. And that enabled, Joseph Kabila to stay in power for around for extra 2.5 years. So I see such a scenario, because I don't think that William Samoei Ruto is ready to facilitate for the composition of the IEBC. And even if the IEBC will be constituted, I tend to think that they will come up with another scapegoat. So I was telling people today that I'll not be surprised, because we are getting into 2025. The matter is still in court in Kiambu. We don't know when it will be heard and determined. So we are looking up to March, April next year, 2025, without IEBC. Then, when the matter is decided March or April next year, perhaps, that's when the process will start taking place. And, the process takes around 3 months, because you are interviewing people who want to become commissioners. After you interview them, then you shortlist, then you provide the names to National Assembly for purposes of vetting. Then this process could drag on up to even June or July next year. Then perhaps, the closest we can get, the new commissioners for the IEBC is August or September 2025. So, I was telling somebody that, this is a game that is being played on the people of Kenya. So, there's a likelihood, because William Samoei Ruto is a king of playing games, and because, he's not keen on seeing an election in 2027, this is what is likely to happen. If they constitute an IEBC as late as September or October 2025, then, we have not done what they call delimitation of boundaries. And,
Yes.
we are supposed to have done the delimitation of boundaries, a process that is supposed to be done every after 10 to 12 years, which we have not done. So, we have not done the delimitation. We have not done voter registration. There are a lot of things that we have not done. So if we get a new IEBC by let us say October 2025, the Ruto team, because they're in a position to procure the judgment that they want, and we have seen it that it's possible for them to procure a judgment that they want. And if you want to know that it's true, look at what happened in the regarding Gachagua matter, where they ended up procuring a judgment that they want. So there's a likelihood that these people they could move to the Supreme Court to seek an opinion with a preset mind, where they
Yes.
want, the Supreme, where they want the Supreme Court to determine that, the elections of Kenya can be extended by another 2 or 3 years in eventuality that perhaps, the IEBC was not in place, or even where, the state does not have enough funds, to conduct elections, So I'm seeing a direction that where we are headed to, the likelihood of having an election in 2027 is not there. William Samoei Ruto could remain president up to 2029 or even 2030, by just playing, games around the people of Kenya. Let me just stop there. And perhaps if you have a question, you could ask, and I could try to answer.
Yes, I wanted to take you back before we even start, giving a forecast on what might happen in 2027 or what's happening, because I agree with you with all what you have said. But I want to take you back to the judgment that was made in the High Court, that there's a ruling in place that says, which actually makes everything about this, whether it's the IEBC Amendment Act, it makes it null and void, because there's a ruling that was made by the High Court that said that the president should go ahead and reconstitute the IEBC. And not only that, it also said the NADCO thing, the NADCO report, the NADCO discussions was not anchored in law. There's nothing constitutional about it. And remember, this IEBC Amendment Act was conjured up at the Bomas. It was part of the NADCO deal. So if the court already said that anything that stems from the NADCO is unconstitutional, is not anchored in law, it makes the bill, the act, because it's the law now, it makes it unconstitutional, because this is a bunch of 2 coalition parties that sat there in Bomas in an air-conditioned room and came up with this, whatever, saying that they want to, have extra commissioners from 7 to 9 and all this stuff. Okay. So there's a ruling in place. That's why I'm asking. There was no public participation in that process. Remember that. Okay. So,
my understanding of the whole process is that, it is the prerogative of the parliament, to legislate. They have the constitutional power to make law. So, so long as, they followed, the parliamentary due process, in enacting that particular IEBC Amendment Act, so long as, the process was, up to date, there was public participation, then it went through the first reading,
there was none.
second reading,
there was no
then the third reading.
There was no public participation
by the president. Then, the process was...
There was no public participation on the IEBC
on the IEBC Amendment Act.
There was no public participation. That's why I'm saying that ruling was very important. In fact, just hang on a minute before I bring Dani. Let me play it one more time so you can hear the news, how they reported it, because it's very important. Hold on. I hope this is the right one, because the judgment was, I think it was by a lady judge, and it was a very, 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 very telling, eye-opening judgment by this judge. Hold on just a minute. Hold on. Here it is.
Leader Raila Odinga has vowed his coalition will not participate in the constitution of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, using the formula proposed by the Kenya Kwanza administration, claiming that is a plot to rig the 2027 elections. Odinga has reiterated his commitment to never recognize President William Ruto as the legitimate president of Kenya. NTV's political affairs reporter Vincent Oduor tells us more.
Azimio political brigade led by Raila Odinga camped at Mlolongo after finishing their two-day parliamentary group meeting in Machakos County, which was aimed at quelling divisions among its party ranks and de-whipping Azimio rebel legislators.
Nairobi County.
Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka continued with their call of rejecting William Ruto's presidency and vowing this time round to salvage what they have termed as their stolen 2022 presidential victory.
Raila aliibiwa kura 2013 tukiwa na yeye, akaibiwa 2017, akaibiwa 2022. Safari hii ya 2022 anasema haitaenda. Wangapi anasema haitaenda? Wangapi anasema haitaenda?
Ruto mwenyewe anajua ati hakushinda. Anajua kwa roho yake ati yeye kufanya nini? Kila Jumapili anaingia kanisa, maombi, 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 maombi. Ukiona mtu namna hiyo, anajua hakuna hitilafu.
This year, the process of appointing new commissioners to the IEBC will be a political battleground between Azimio and Kenya Kwanza ahead of the 2027 election. Kenya Kwanza has proposed amendments to the IEBC Act to alter the composition of the selection panel of new commissioners to the IEBC.
Hatuwezi kwenda uchaguzi wa 2027 na IEBC ambayo wanataka kuiunda saa hii ili kuimarisha wizi ambao uliletwa na kina Chebukati.
Azimio will not participate in a process that does not involve the people.
Hold on, guys. Actually, this is not the video that I was looking for. Ile video nilikuwa natafuta is this one here. Just give me a second. Poleni sana. Let me play the right video because the one I'm looking for is the one that the judge actually makes out in. Munipatie tu dakika kidogo tu niicheze. Because that addresses what we are discussing here. Melchizedek just nipatie dakika kidogo tu unde mambo hapa hivi. Tunakuja tu hapo pole pole. Hebu ngoja hapa. Hii sasa ni mambo gani? Okay. Hold on. Wacha nicheze hapa because this addresses the issue that we are talking about. Sasa hii ndio okay. Ndio hiyo. Okay. Sawa ndio hii. I don't know why the video is not
constitutional vacuum that the talks between Azimio and Kenya Kwanza created in the name of a political truce. In her decision, High Court Judge Mugure Thande said political expediency should not override the constitution. Constitutional lawyers say the country faces a constitutional crisis at a time when IEBC should have been concluding the review of constituency boundaries, whose 12-year window lapses next month. Stephen Leto reports.
High Court Judge Mugure Thande directed that the current IEBC selection panel moves with speed and immediately recruits new IEBC commissioners, including their chair. The process was put on hold following the constitution of the bipartisan talks, where both Azimio and Kenya Kwanza fronted talks teams seeking to find, among others, the best formula to replace ousted and retired IEBC commissioners. But the High Court judge said, quote, "I reject the notion that the political question doctrine should override the very explicit constitutional provisions and that the prevailing circumstances should be allowed to infringe on the rights enshrined in the Constitution." Justice Thande further said in her ruling that the intervention of this court is therefore justified more so because the bipartisan talks are, to the best of our knowledge, not anchored in either the Constitution or the law. The High Court's decision brought about by a case filed by Aden Mohammed, who claimed that failure to recruit IEBC commissioners in time had violated the rights of constituents who were to hold by-elections. For instance, Banisa constituency. The MP died in March last year.
Already a constitutional crisis. IEBC, as one of the independent institutions, has an ongoing mandate to mediate political processes. One of them is to conduct by-elections. Another one is to review boundaries. And these are ongoing processes. They're not linked to a general election. It was a mistake actually to disband IEBC without a plan for reconstituting a new one.
Political pundits add that it was a deal without a laid down framework to have new commissioners in office.
Remember, there is a constituency that doesn't have an MP at the moment. I think it's called Banisa, somewhere in Mandera also. And the people of Banisa have a right to be represented in parliament continuously. They have not been represented for well over a year now. Nobody in this country has mandate to disinherit me or to deny me the right to representation.
IEBC is required to have started the process.
The delimitation of boundaries, which is required under law to be done at least 10 years, but not later than 12 years. Now, 10 years came in the year 2022, but the law allowed us up to 12 years, which now expires in March of 2024. So in terms of the crisis that would then ensue is that there would be a lacuna in law where delimitation has not been done, and there are constituencies which may cease to exist.
Some constituencies had been ring-fenced for the period and were to cease existing after the boundaries review. On the 23rd of June, IEBC, in its boundaries review plan, increased the population quota to 164,015, having divided the population at the time 47.5 million with a stipulated 290 constituencies.
The constituencies were saved under the law were about 30 constituencies, including Odaya is one of them, I think Daragwa is one of them, and a number of other constituencies. It means then that we cannot plan for them, the government cannot allocate money to them, you cannot appropriate resources for CDF and other planning things in terms of infrastructure, roads, and other things. That is the immediate constitutional crisis that I foresee.
The National Dialogue Committee report had laid down a framework on the recruitment of the IEBC team, but the document is still gathering dust in Parliament. Stephen Leto, Citizen.
Okay. So, Wangira, just to get back to you, this is the point I was making, that Judge Muthari, what's his name? Mathare Good Tunde. What, did you see her name? She said the NADCO report.
Mugure Thande.
Mugure Thande, yes, Mugure Thande. She said the NADCO report, which was a product of these two political coalitions having a talk at Bomas, is not anchored in law. So how can they draft something and push it to be passed in the parliament as law? The ruling is very clear. This is not anchored in law. It's unconstitutional. Yes.
You know, I've listened. I've listened, you know, to that clip. You know, what Justice Mugure Thande was saying is that, you know, political expedience, you know, cannot override, you know, the Constitution of Kenya. That's what she was saying. And, you know, that he meant that, you know, at that particular time, you know, the argument was that, you know, there were particular negotiations that were going on, you know, through what was then the NADCO process. And, you know, that's where she came in and said that, you know, those were political expediences, you know, that could not have overridden the constitutional requirement. You know, that's what she said. And that's why she said that, you know, the selection panel was supposed to have continued with, you know, its work. You know, that was what she said. But, you know, where we stand today, you know, the selection panel never proceeded, you know, with what the court mandated it to proceed with. And as we stand today,
which Wangira, which means anything that went on after the NADCO report is in illegality. Am I right or wrong? Or
not necessarily. And that's why I was telling you, not necessarily. That's why I was telling you that, you know, Parliament can enact law, Parliament can amend any act of Parliament at any given time. So what I was telling you that so long as, the parliamentary processes, were above board in amending the IBC Act, then, the amendment, will become legal. And again, my understanding of law is one that, unless a court of law declares a particular law, whether it's a substantive law or an amendment, illegal, that particular law remains legal. It's only the court of law that can, declare, the IBC Amendment Act illegal. Without, such a declaration from a court of law, then nobody else can say that, that particular amendment was illegal. But this is my point. I agree with what you are saying entirely. Because, that's where the confusion started. Because we had a selection panel in place, somebody decided to go in what we call a gentleman agreement, that overrode, into the mandate of a selection panel that was already in place. So, the chairman of the selection panel at that particular time, is the person that let the people of Kenya down, because he had been selected, he had been gazetted, he had been given, a particular role to carry out together with his members of the panel. What do? They decided to play ball, political ball, when they were already in office constitutionally. And again, I can also not blame them very much, because, in government, for you to conduct such an exercise, you need to be facilitated. And who is the owner of facilitation, is the exchequer. So, and the president, decides who should be facilitated and who should not be facilitated. That tells you that even if this selection panel, even if it wanted to proceed on with exercise, without the goodwill of the executive, then it could have been very impossible, because were they going to conduct the exercise with the money from their own pockets? That's the question. So, where we are, already we have breached, a court judgment, and where we stand today, that court judgment seems to have been overtaken by event, because there was an amendment on the IEBC Act, that came up with another model of empaneling that panel, and that panel, the new category and procedure of empaneling a new panel is what is now costing us problem, because people are not agreeing on who should be the members of the panel, and time is not on our side. And again, if you listen to that clip very carefully, there was a gentleman who was talking about the boundary delimitation that is supposed to take place within 10 to 12 months. And that's why I've told you that we are playing in William Samoei Ruto's court here, and it's likely to take advantage of this whole process. And there's a likelihood that I've told you that perhaps the earliest we can have an IEBC is perhaps August or September 2025. Looking at the way things are playing. But the question that people will be asking is one: can we go to the 2027 elections, without boundary delimitation? That's one question that must be answered, whether we can go to the 2027 elections without boundary delimitation. And I've told you that single question, can be used to procure a favorable judgment for William Samoei Ruto from the Supreme Court. It's not a judgment, but an opinion. It can be used to procure a favorable opinion for William Samoei Ruto from the Supreme Court, because the Supreme Court can decide. Now, there was a delay in, putting in place an IEBC commissioners, and they are supposed to undertake, boundaries delimitation, and that process takes 18 months. It's not a process that goes on for one day. The limitation exercise is an 18 months, entire exercise, because, you have to carry out, public participation, visit those constituencies that are affected, come up with a report. That report must go to Parliament. It must be debated. It's an entire process of 18 months. So, already we are behind by 18 months in terms of delimitation. And that's why I was telling you that, we are playing, the game that William Samoei Ruto is enjoying today. So, that's why, William Samoei Ruto enjoys it when he sees if he sees, the selection of the IEBC commissioner being prolonged, because, it's playing to his advantage. When we constitute it let us say in August 2025, the earliest, they can settle in office, that could be in December 2025. Then we are talking of 2026. Then they will say that, we will need 18 months extra, to do the boundaries delimitation. And that's where now the Attorney General will move to the Supreme Court to procure a favorable or a Supreme Court opinion. And the Supreme Court opinion could say that because there was a delay, let us give IEBC 2 years, to undertake, boundaries delimitation. And if that particular period is given, and the Constitution is very clear that the president can only leave office when he's handing over to another new president that is coming in, we will give William Samoei Ruto room to become president of the Republic of Kenya up to 2029.
Mr. Wangira.
Oh. Go ahead, KK. At least salimia watu, wacha kuingia na ukali hapo wewe.
No.
Georgia is playing Texas AM, I think at 7.
Wanacheza sahi, I'm Team Texas.
Oh, crap. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, Ms. Wangira aliambia last time, which I took it to heart, by the way, and I don't mind it. Aliambia niache kuongea kitu sielewi. And I
alikwambia hivyo?
Yes, no, sio ubaya, and I like it. Right?
Okay. I didn't think Wangira said that. Wangira is very...
Hakusema hivyo directly. Lakini, because I said something about law, which I'm very sure I wasn't sure. But he corrected me, but that's what he said. Na hiyo sio shida anyway. So, on the same token, tumeongea about judiciary. Tumeongea about IEBC. Tumeongea about our constitution. None of these things are working. So where we are arguing about the framework of the law, on one corner, the other side are not even following the same book. What are we doing? Educate me, Mr. Wangira.
Before Wangira answers,
hold on. Let me just answer, then you come in.
Can you give me 2 seconds? Okay, thank you. Just 2 seconds. I was just about to say this. The aim here is to bring people to the same realization that exactly what you're saying, KK. That's why we are discussing this thing and exposing how the trick card is being played on us by Ruto. That's why we're discussing these things and tunazichambua ndio tuone vile tunachezwa. But anyway, Wangira, go ahead. You were about to say something.
In fact, you have just said what I wanted to say. We are using this platform to enlighten Kenyans on the type of games that are going outside, that are going on out there, because they seem to be games that, where we stand, and the way things look, the elections could be pushed, up to 2029. And, by enlightening and educating Kenyans, we are now giving them, room to understand. And if they understand, then the ball will be in their hands to say that, we cannot have this man as president of the Republic of Kenya beyond this period. And, that's where the talks we have been having here of, people even coming out, to revolt and saying that, this man must go, that particular moment is now. Because, looking at things, there are games that are being played. There are games. Looking at it, there are games that are being played that could even ensure that William Samoei Ruto becomes president beyond 2027. But is that what we want? We are all in agreement that we don't want that. So what do? That we have now known that, William Samoei Ruto is likely to stay on or to hang on beyond 2027. It's just an educative forum. We are educating one another, and out of this education, people can make, what we call, informed decision on the way forward.
So, Wangira, this is where I wanted to engage you on this. You've laid out you say that Tunde her judgment was, it was overtaken by the events of the time or whatever. But I mean, okay, if I had money to burn and I want to be a litigious citizen, I would go to the courts and say, hey, listen, there's a court order which basically trashed the whole NADCO meeting negotiations, as you've termed it as a gentleman's agreement. Tunde said this is not anchored in law, it's unconstitutional. So anything that emanates from it is not anchored in law. Why should the parliament pass it? The president initially there was a selection panel that was in place that was already picked by the president that was supposed to go ahead and pick the nominees. Okay, so if I was to go back to that and say this NADCO, because you have to remember the time, Nani, what's his name? Okiya Wandai was very, very pugilistic in his rhetoric when he was speaking to the country. He was like, failure to include the NADCO report that we have put forth, we shall have this demonstration across every city in Kenya, and you know what that brings. So what I'm saying is this: if we are to be a law-abiding citizens that we are, okay, the court is an arm of government equal to the legislative body and to the executive body. No one is above the other. The executive body handles the administrative part of the government. The legislate, represent, and what is the third one? I forgot. But judiciary, they whatever, they interpret the law. So this is a high court judge that said, hey, listen, this gentleman, the NEO agreement, as you term it, Wangira, is not valid. It's not anchored in law. And they still proceeded by threatening us and telling us, without this NADCO, the NEO, they shall go to the streets and there'll be bloodshed and we shall not have peace. And Tunde said, because he knew the nonsense that Okiya Wandai was saying, and he said, it is not about political expediency. This is about the constitution. So anything that came out of that NADCO report, in my opinion, including the IEBC Amendment Act, even the process itself, because I don't remember us having a public participation on that very law. All we know is that Ruto invited Kalonzo and Raila Odinga when they went to KICC hapo wakaenda kwa sign hiyo kitu that day, that when Gen Zs were still on the streets. So to me, it's unconstitutional. So if you were to go back to it and look at the constitution that it was, the law it was made, the procedure in which this law was passed was unconstitutional. So we should go back to the original 2010, what it says about the IEBC reconciliation. That's why I'm saying this whole thing in mchezo wa town. And it's unfortunate that these, especially the Azimio side, I'm not saying that Kenya Kwanza are innocent. They are just as guilty. But the Azimio side, they blackmailed, held the country hostage by threatening us, telling us that if you don't accept this NADCO deal, we are going to have a civil war. So accept it. And that's why my problem is. And Justice Tunde said that we are not going to be intimidated. To fuate Sharia, the constitution. That's where my difference comes. And I say, even though we want to reconstitute this IBC, no. This whole thing is bogus. Yes, Jared, go ahead.
This is my understanding. I don't know.
Because technically the court order was followed. You heard what I said.
I would like to know who. I've gotten your point, and that's why I'm responding to it.
Okay.
The applicant in this particular matter, because a court of law can, a court of law does not have mechanisms of enforcing its own judgment. A court of law cannot enforce its own judgment.
But it has to be respected.
So this is my point. I'm coming there. So, the applicant, the applicant in this matter, who got a favorable judgment that, that particular selection panel proceeds on, immediately he discovered that, the government of Kenya was not keen in, continuing with that particular selection panel. He could have gone to the same judge to seek for the enforcement of that judgment, to say that, so that a judge gives a ruling that, no other panel should be constituted apart from the one that is already existing for the purposes of selecting, the IEBC commissioners. That is, the route that he could have taken. And, that could have enabled that panel to proceed on with this work. But, because, the guy got a favorable judgment, and he seemed to have done nothing with that judgment. And, that's why, the government of Kenya seemed to have ignored it, because, there was no way of enforcing that judgment.
No, Mr. Wangira, I beg to disagree. The judge was very clear. He said the NADCO talks that were going on at that stage was not anchored in law. Okay? So whatever the talks were happening at Bomas did not mean anything as far as our constitution, the system that we follow, which is our 2010 constitution, is concerned. So what they were doing was a gentleman, that was a coalition discussion somewhere in Bomas. It has nothing to do with the nation state Kenya. Okay? And he told the president to proceed with the selection panel and select the nominees for the new commissioners and the chairperson. Okay? But the president did not, and the Azimio folks did not adhere to what the judgment of the High Court, which represents the judicial arm of government, which has power and authority, has the delegated authority that we gave them to make this judgment. So everything that they continued with, being the president broke the constitution, didn't respect the judiciary, and the Azimio didn't respect the judiciary, they were in contravention of the law from that point on, and they didn't care. So anything past that was unlawful. All that NADCO thing was unlawful. That's why I'm saying everything that came from that NADCO was not anchored in law, was unconstitutional, and nobody should take it seriously if we were to follow the law or our constitution to the T, because judiciary is the judiciary arm of government, is part of the new. When they make their pronouncement, it has to be followed, whether it's enforced or not. So we cannot proceed. That's what I'm making. That's the point I'm making. If the court order is not obeyed, anything else that stems from it is illegal. I hope I'm clear.
This is the dilemma. And, I'm talking about the dilemma. I'm agreeing with you entirely. But, there is a dilemma here. The court, through, Justice Mugure, Tande pronounced itself. And, it did not say that what was going on at Bomas then was illegal. But, they say she described it as what they call, political expedience. It was not that it was illegal. But, she described it as political expedience, which could not have overridden, what the constitution, demands. That's what she said. And again, there was a court judgment here by, Justice Mugure Tande that was very, very clear that, the selection panel that then existed should proceed on into nominating, the IEBC, selecting the IEBC commissioner. So, that was a court judgment, and I'm in a full agreement with you that the court judgment existed. So, there were two ways into enforcing that judgment. Way number one was, for the selection panel then that was existing as a body, because it was a body that had been selected and gazetted, then it was a body in law. They could have demanded that they proceed on in fulfilling, the requirement of the judgment. That was the number one direction that this matter could have taken. Number two direction that this matter could have taken was for the applicant of in this matter, who got that favorable judgment when he discovered that that the government of Kenya was not keen in enforcing this particular judgment. Then he could have returned to the same judge and seek for the enforcement of that particular judgment. Where we stand, as things stand today, this seems to be water under the bridge, because the NADCO people continued sitting. They came up with a report. Through that report, they generated their own, bills of parliament. These bills went to parliament, and assuming that they went through what we call, the requirement of law, where there was public participation. Then they went through first reading, second reading, and third reading. Then they got a presidential assent. Unless a court of law can overturn that particular amendment, where we stand today, that amendment becomes, remains, part of the laws of Kenya, and that's what I was telling you. Have you gone?
KK, go ahead. I'm here. Sorry, I went to grab something. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. KK, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, I missed the last part of Wangira's.
No.
Go ahead.
I try. Okay, I'll try to connect. You guys are trying to argue the laws. Wangira is trying to explain how the law should work. Or unasema the law is, we don't even follow anything imekuwa kifanywa, I follow the law. Sindio? I think it's fair enough for me to be the part where I ask, what are we doing now to stop it?
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Wangira says this is how the law should work. Amazingly, that's very true. You say everything that's imekuwa kihappen, sio legal. So me now, Lisa, what are we going to do? Because this person is going to steal the next election. As we speak, he is forcing things that we have refused as a society. He is forcing it down our throats. My fair question is, tunafanya nini? Tutafanya nini? That's my only point I have to ask.
Okay. I will answer that question right here, right now. And as people who, and I'm glad to have Wangira here. I'm sorry, Wangira, I missed the tail end of your presentation when you are making that point. But just to answer my friend KK here, since we like the law and we like the Constitution, let me just help and bring in this resolution to what's ailing Kenya.
Before you go there, can I just say something?
Yes.
There's a maxim that says the law was not made for man. No, man was not made for law, but law was made for man. So, if our law is not working, then, the people, if any particular law is not working for the people, then, the people have a right to say that, that particular law is not working for them. And, or they have even a right to agitate that, that provision of the law be done away with. Where we are today and where we stand today, there are some things in law that, that seem not to be working for us. For example, the NADCO thing that we are discussing here, we are even in agreement that it was a gentleman's agreement. But where we stand, it has been forced to become part of the Kenyan law. And it is the reason why we are where we are today. What do we do as the people of Kenya? And just like I've told you that there's a likelihood for these things to drag and to extend, or the reign in power for William Samoei Ruto? Are the people of Kenya ready to have William Samoei Ruto, in office even one day extra? Those are the things that the people of Kenya need to be those are the things that the people of Kenya should start interrogating from today going forward. Because where things stand, that seems to be the game. And, the law being announced, it could favor, the guy who is in power. And he could end up sticking there for even another 2 or 2.5 years. But is that what the people of Kenya want? I believe no. So if they don't want, to go that particular direction, the court, the ball is in their court. That's why I was telling you that, demonstration that includes even revolutions, are acceptable, where you believe that the law is not working for you. If the law is not working for you, you can even take the revolution where it's acceptable. And we are seeing that, whatever, countries are taking, same routes. You saw what happened in South Korea the other day. We have seen what happened in Sri Lanka, what happened in Bangladesh.
Mozambique.
We have seen what the people can do. So, when the law is not serving us as the people of Kenya well, then, we could be forced to take another direction that, could give us what I call, favorable results.
Actually, if you look at the screen, the law actually favors us. We don't have to go outside the law to look for solutions. It is right there in front of you. Article 1, which addresses the sovereignty of the people. I hope you guys can see the screen, right? All sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya and shall be exercised only in accordance with this constitution. 2, the people may exercise the sovereign power either directly or through their democratically elected representatives. 3, sovereign power under this constitution is delegated. It has been given. We've delegated it. We've given to the following state organs, which shall perform their functions in accordance with this constitution: Parliament and the legislative assemblies in the county governments. B, the national executive and the executive structures in the county governments. And C, the judiciary and independence tribunals. Now, before we go, we don't have to go down there. I want to focus on the second subsection 2. Okay? Now, this is where it comes. The popular revolution comes in. We've mentioned Sri Lanka. We've mentioned South Korea. We've mentioned Mozambique. We have the constitution to back us because it is clear Judge Thunde made a judgment which was not respected by either of the coalition party members, whether it was the Azimio or the Kenya Kwanza, which was the ruling party. They did not respect it. They went ahead and, conjured up this whole NADCO report and made it law, which is why we are suffering with this IEBC amendment bill, the Kalonzos and all that stuff. So, this is why I argue, why can't we exercise the first article of the Constitution, subsection 2, where now we are not going to exercise our power through this representative, but we, the people, exercise it directly. How do we do that? The exact example that you gave me. Mozambique, South Korea, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh. What did they do? Gen Z, occupy parliament, occupy state house, because nothing works. They've shown it. They did not respect the court order. They don't respect the constitution. They don't respect these independent bodies that are supposed to provide checks and balances within this government. They don't. They meet up as gentlemen and they make up stuff and they push it as law and they make it law and they tell us. In fact, Wandai was up there arrogantly, the hubris, telling us that if you don't accept this NADCO, Kenya itaendelea, they will not have peace, basically. So that's where I come. So going to having a popular revolution is not illegal, actually. It is there in the law. What Gen Zs were doing was constitutional. Peaceful protest. They went up there and they rendered the legislative body useless, and even they took the mace. And the next step was to take the State House. So what's wrong with that? It's not illegal. The legislative body they have failed us. Ruto has failed us, the head of the executive and judiciary. Of course, nobody respects them. Whether it's Juris Pesa or it's Tunde making the new and they don't respect those judgments. That's what I'm saying.
So, if on your point,
yes,
let me explain this. This is why the same reason why the political class have united. Wameungana, because as we talk, kila kitu imekuwa kifanywa since we got a new constitution. Most of it imekuwa kifanywa illegally. Right?
Yes.
So if we audited each and everything that has happened, more than likely 99% of them are implicated. This is why Raila and Ruto and all these people eventually will unite. If somehow we had any chance of having an election, this is why watu wameshikana hivi sai. Wengine wanajifanya kwa ile side kupima watu. This is why a revolution is the only option and solution here. The other option would be military. I don't think that's an option now. Is us versus them. Yeah, maybe 1,000, 2,000 max. I think that's the only thing they have to understand. Nchi yetu hawatauza nchi yetu. It's just being logical. Mashamba. Our own basic freedoms. Healthcare, a good education. Things that functions. Go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just about to say, now you see why, to me, people like the IEBC issue, Hanifa, Boniface, Mwangi, even Okiya, Omtata are a distraction. Because for somebody who critically analyzes what's happening in Kenya, it is crystal clear that every governmental body that is supposed to be independent has been usurped by the executive, which is headed by Ruto. Yes.
Let me say one thing.
Go ahead.
You know, I've listened to KK, and one I can't agree with him more. Secondly, you know, there's a point I picked from him that perhaps I want to elaborate more. You know, our problem as a republic, you know, seems to be, you know, personalization of governance rather than institutionalization of governance. I don't know whether you will understand what I mean by personalization of governance.
Yes, I do.
So in Kenya, what we have done, we have personalized governance other than, you know, institutionalizing governance. So, you know, the governance in the Republic of Kenya, you know, revolves around particular individuals. For example, there is this talk in town that, you know, when Baba is happy, then everybody is happy. You know, that's what I talk about, personalization of governance, you know. Then there's the other talk that, you know, when President William Samoei Ruto is okay, then everything is okay. But, you know, the way the architecture of the 2010 Constitution is about is institutionalization of governance, not personalization. But, you know, we are still in what I call personalization, where, you know, governance, you know, revolves around particular individuals. But, you know, for example, when Raila Odinga is happy, then everything is okay. When William Samoei Ruto is happy, then everything is okay. And, you know, that's a wrong route for a country. because, you know, a country cannot become captive of individuals, you know, unless we want to become like South Sudan, where, you know, if Salva Kiir and Riek Machar are happy, then you purport that, you know, the entire South Sudan is happy. You know, we don't want to go that particular route, especially when we have, you know, a progressive constitution like the 2010 constitution. So, you know, what we need to work hard on as the people of Kenya is to ensure that, you know, governance in this country is institutionalized, you know, and it's no longer personalized. And, you know, that's why, you know, you'll see funny things. For example, when we had the Rigathi Gachagua matter, I want to use it as an example. Look at, you know, the way the three-judge bench behaved, you know. You know, they wanted to give particular results, you know, to William Samoei Ruto by ensuring that he got an opportunity to have the person he wanted, you know, sworn in as deputy president of the Republic of Kenya. You know, that's what I call, you know, personalization. But, you know, if, you know, if it was institutionalization of governance, you know, questions could have come up. For example, you know, that the three-judge bench was supposed to ask itself, you know, now that we even want to have, you know, Kithure Kindiki, you know, sworn in, but, you know, how was this guy selected or nominated in the first place for him to become deputy president designate? You know, those questions could have come up, you know, before, you know, they even lifted, you know, the conservatory orders. But because, you know, the issue was about personalization, you know, where the institution was personalized around William Samoei Ruto, you know, they were not in a position to ask those questions. And, you know, the big problem in the Republic of Kenya, you know, revolves around this issue of personalizing governance rather than institutionalizing governance. You know, the day we'll start institutionalizing governance in the Republic of Kenya, that day will end up getting everything right. But so long as, you know, issues in Kenya are about personalization of governance, then, you know, we'll keep on getting into problems that like the ones we have today around the IEBC, where, you know, because of one man, we are not in a position to put in place the selection panel. And now, because we cannot put in place the selection panel, then we cannot have the commissioners. And because we cannot have the commissioners, then, you know, nothing can move in this country as far as, you know, the electoral preparedness is concerned. You know, let me just stop there, my brother.
Don't you think that it's the executive, the president, who actually personalized this institutions? Because I agree with you that the intention of the 2010 constitution was to make these institutions so powerful that power was not centralized around the executive being headed by one person, the president, okay? Like Moi or Jomo Kenyatta, where, you know, he would go to mashinani and tell, okay, tujenge barabara hapa. And, you know, the next day people will come in and start to jengering. So I get that. So 2010 constitution attempted to decentralize power and also take this power out of the presidency, the executive branch, to give the judiciary and IEBC, police, judiciary, and also legislative body to be power centers that checks the executive, where it takes power from this executive. But what we saw that is, even after 2010, that habit of, I'm the president, I get to make the decisions, what I say goes. If I tell the police do this, you do this. Don't you think it's the other way around? It's the presidents, whether it's
we have a history to these, and I like being historical. If you look at the negotiated, constitution that came from the Lancaster process, it was about, it was about separation of powers. Then it was about devolved, sharing of resources. That's why, we had what we call the regional government. But what happened in 1964, when we became a republic, the constitution was watered down, and we ended up, with a president who was an imperial president. Jomo Kenyatta was an imperial president. Then came in Daniel Toroitich arap Moi. who was Mutukufu Rais, Mkulima number one, Mwalimu number one. If you remember, that is the historical reality. That's the historical realities of this country. Then, when we promulgated, the new constitution, we were supposed to have left, all these things behind. But there's what we call, the political bad manners. The constitution that we have called the Constitution 2010 is a very progressive, good document, if well implemented. But, people are stuck to the bad manners, of 1964 under Mzee Jomo Kenyatta and 1978 under Daniel Arap Moi, the political bad manners, what I call, a new wine in the old wineskin. So, we are in a scenario where, as much as, we have new wine, but, the wine is in the old wineskin. Now, imagine new wine, and then, in an old wineskin, how is it likely to look like? That is the scenario that we are in as a country. And, that's why we are struggling when you are not supposed to struggle. Imagine 14 years after promulgating a new constitution, you will imagine that we are still in 1988. Because, the way, people like William Samoei Ruto are behaving, you will imagine that we are still in 1988. Look at the behavior of the police. The police was supposed to have been an independent institution under the independent command of the Inspector General. Is the police in Kenya independent? Is it under an independent command? Are you telling me that the Inspector General of the National Police Service today in Kenya is an independent commander of the National Police Service? That's what I call, the bad manners, of the years that have been carried over. And, they have put us into the problems where we are today.
Mr. Wangira. So, I like your analogy of bad manners. But I would like to use what it's supposed to be called, illegality. That's a crime. Let's call it as what our laws call it, crimes. Until we start doing that, we go back, even if tukuje tuweke Yesu kesho hapo, and we go back without, the laws are there, all of them. We live like a civilized society. We have to change how we define our social contract with our government, with ourselves. What I want somebody to treat me, I want them to be treated the same, even if I don't know them. Kama kitu ni mbaya, tuite ni mbaya. Vitu hazifanyi kazi. It's a fact. Kila mtu anaona. Justice system haifanyi kazi. Our laws, they're not working. The executive have followed the constitution. Only a naive, stupid person will do the same thing again and again and again and expect something different to change. It's just basic logic. So, where are we going? What are we doing?
So I guess that's the next question. Wangira, we have diagnosed the problem. We know that power is being personalized. The institutions are being personalized. Like Chief Lagos have told us that these institutions have been bought off by the executive for him to have all this power under him. Now, what's the solution? Yes, we've been agitating through the courts, reminding him that, hey, you don't have this power to do this. But it seems like we have some gentlemen, to use your words, gentlemen's agreement. These gentlemen, who I would not describe them as gentlemen, but for the sake of discussion, they seem to be above the law. What they say goes. If they want this law passed, it will be passed. If they want this done, it will be done. If they want Gachagua out, it will be out. If they want this, what's the solution? Because to me, my solution is what I just talked about, and I highlighted it. It's in our constitution. It's not illegal for us as the people to go out in the streets and remove them. Of course, there are people who are agitating through the same system by trying these courts and trying these independent bodies to remove them. How do we, let me just say, depersonalize this power from this independent institution? Do we work through the system, or do we work outside the system by we, the people, deciding, hey, we have to take back our sovereignty, this delegated power, we have to take it back and exercise it as we will, because these people we delegated this power to have let us down. What's your view on that, Mr. Wangera?
Where I stand, I see a dilemma, but even when I see a dilemma, it does not mean that, we cannot have a way out, because we must find a way out. Even in your normal circumstance, even if you're in a dilemma, you don't stick there. You must find a way out. So what would be a way out of this situation? Because just like I've told you that, we are suffering from a syndrome where, governance seems to have been personalized around particular individuals. In Kiswahili tunasema hao ndio kusema, kile wamesema ndio kupita, which means in some way, they are almost above the law. For example, if you look at this old man called Raila Odinga, it's as if he's above the law. Then there is the president who is also as if he's above the law. Let me talk about the two individuals. Then, we have identified the problem, and the problem is, is what we call, the personalization of governance. Then, the question has been asked, how do we move from personalization to institutionalization of governance? That's the question that perhaps we need to answer. Then how do we answer this question? I'm not, I don't enjoy monopoly of knowledge or monopoly of anything, but where I stand, first of all, we need to start by recreating, a new blood of young leadership. A new blood of young leadership devoid of, for example, in Luo Nyanza, there's almost, Oraila there is almost a cult. It's almost a cult that, to ordinary people in that particular region of this country, what he says, is almost law. Then how do we change, for example, when we talk of Luo Nyanza, I want to use it as an example. How do we change the mindset of the people of Luo Nyanza to divorce themselves from this cult of a gentleman called Raila Odinga, so that they start seeing that, governance in this country is not about an individual, but is about institution. So, that is a question that perhaps I'll not have straight answer for. But, all that I can say that, we need to have, a fresh mindset as the people of this republic. Because, if we stick with the mindset that majority of the people of Kenya have, then, we'll not move an inch. Because we have many Kenyans, who are stuck there. And, that's the reality. I've given you an example of Luo Nyanza, where people are stuck, into believing, this guy, who they almost worship, they believe that whatever he says is law. And even if he's leading them into the wrong direction, they still follow him. Then, how do we delink the people from such a thing that, I call a cartel? How, a cult, how do we delink the people from such a person, who are called, the head of, the cult, because with him there, and just like we were discussing with you here the other time, where we have a nation and people are not speaking in one language, even if you wanted to push for a revolution, it will become almost impossible, because there will be a bigger percentage you not believe in your idea. Then what do you do? What do you do? Because, you need to bring everybody to the same thinking, or the majority of the nation to the same thinking. But here where we have a large number of people. For example, today, as we speak today, and I want to say it here, there's a section of this country who are feeling that, you know, with the present regime in power, and because, you know, perhaps they feel that they are punishing a particular section of the country, you know, the word is punishing a particular section of the country, so they are okay if this particular regime continues being in power, and that's their mindset. That's their thinking. And these are not 1, 2, 3, 4 people. These are people in their millions. So, you know, how do you change their mindset so that, you know, they move from personalization of governance to personalization of governance? You know, that's a question that perhaps I don't have an answer for, and perhaps I'll throw a ball to each one of us here.
Yeah, to me, I see it like this. The institution is only made strong, I would say, by the laws that we have. And I think the law is, one wise man said, laws actually determine the culture of a nation. Laws make the culture. You know, if we say that, you know, having short hair is for everyone is beneficial to our citizens, you'll see a lot of people having short hair. Even if they move to other countries, they'll feel like having short hair is the best thing. So laws shape culture. Now, we had a very, very insightful what do you call it? Not speech, but not recommendation. What do you say? Presentation by Melchizedek. I just want to use that section of the country because he comes from Nyanza province, and he mentioned how the so-called cult leader Raila Odinga, who's looked at as a cult leader, but he gives us an insight that most of us don't have. And I think the problem is poverty, number one. People are extremely poor. So in the constituency that he hails from, we had Gladys Wanga and Kidero running for governorship, gubernatorial seat. And he was giving us information of how these political candidates would use youth to intimidate families in areas to vote for a particular, you know, candidate. Basically, they would come in and say, listen, you'll register and you will vote for a particular candidate. And if you don't do so, we know you, we know your family, and they will disappear if you don't do such. Which was an eye-opener for me. Yes, KK, go ahead.
Alitumia kisu. Mimi hata sijaiona kitu kama hiyo. Wow.
Right.
Scary, right?
Yes. So basically you have population that are live in abject poverty, and you have these extremely rich politicians who have looted their way to wealth coming in with guns and weapons and influence, and they buy a bunch of wakora to intimidate the population to vote for them. So that's one thing of how to look at it. And the reason why they are falling for it and they have no option because they are stuck. I mean, he couldn't speak, and he told us he could not speak about this until he got out of that area, and he lives outside the country. Now he can speak about it freely. So that's an example. Poverty keeps you in one place, and you can be easily manipulated by these leaders. So we as outsiders, we might look at it like, oh, that's a cult leader. They like him. They like Raila Odinga. He might not be as popular as you may think. It's just people are poor and he's super rich, and he comes in and uses his boys, whatever, whether the Baghdad boys or whatever the case is, to intimidate the people of the area to vote for him. So poverty is number one. That's why they want to keep you poor. You know, they can. Wangira, I think you are the one who told us about the tokenism, you know, and it's perfect. Mimi, look at me as the Messiah, nakupatia pesa and you worship me, but they want to keep you poor so you can keep on worshiping them. So I think that's number one, poverty. Now, the most powerful thing to me, I think, is information, because information is what empowers one. Knowledge, information first. You cannot have the knowledge without the information. So if they understand that the Constitution, which is hard because, like, also Melchizedek made it that point, you know, if you ukianza kusema vitu sijui different, they might even wanaweza kukuua from where he comes from. But I'm saying this, if they have the information and understand that the law is on their side, they have the power to vote out or vote in a certain renewal, I think it will be a great step. So I don't like what we call civic education, because I think the civic education, the idea of civic education I see in Kenya is, oh, Wavinya Ndeti is eating money over here, is eating money over there. That's not civic education, in my opinion. Civic education is what power does the normal citizen actually have? What does your vote really means? Can you vote out the MCA? Can you vote out the governor? Can you vote out the... That's real civic education. Not, barabara hii kujengwa hapa. That's the difference. That's why, but anyway, I'm talking too much. I don't want to, I think that's my version of the answer. I think the number one thing is we need is information. Because the difference between someone who's wealthy, rich, and poor is information. The poor man is poor, yeah, maybe because he doesn't work hard, but I'm just saying, if he had the information of how to create wealth, he won't be poor anymore. So they have to know the power that they have, okay, to not stop seeing Raila as this, enigma or whatever the case is. So if they have the information, they will say, no, this guy has been playing us. Just like I've been arguing with people who you come here tell me, oh, they used to tell me, hey, Raila, we used to fight with them. Then they finally saw that this guy is a con man. So that's number one, information. And information after that, you can take the next step and take action by, claiming your Ninio, which is action, information, action, and then what's the third one? I forgot. Because I think the information is what will liberate you. That's why I want people to understand that the people like Boniface, Mwangi, Hanifa, Okiya, Omtata, Morara, these are people who are nothing but distractions from the real problem, which is Ruto. They come here and tell us, oh, yeah, wonderful. Okiya Omtata is a wonderful person. He has fought for Kenya. But him running for president, it derails a lot of people who believe in him, thinking that, he's going to win 2027. But the problem is what? We are being told is IEBC, which has been compromised. But IEBC, even if it's fixed right now, it will not produce a fair elections. So we have to make the people understand that, listen, we have to come together and have a popular revolution, because the Constitution says in Article 1, subsection 2, we can exercise our power directly. We can render this delegated power that we gave the judiciary, we gave the executive, we gave the NEO to be useless. And we exercise that power directly and remove Ruto. Legally, it's in the Constitution. That's what I mean. I don't want to preach, but KK, you can comment on that, and Jared can add something on it.
Yes,
I don't want to make it about me preaching.
I'll go back to that point you just said, and I'll add a few more things. The Constitution it recognizes our power to decide this enough is enough. We will take our power back, plan what we want to do, but first of all, we take our power back. And you see, if you look at most of the conversation people have here, it's what do we do after, you see? Because that's usually a way to kind of cloud you. The point is to cloud people's minds. Because first of all, tumeona venye hawa watu wanatufanyia. First of all, let's get them out of power. Put them somewhere, then let's decide what country we want. That's my other point I want to just put it out there. Because every time you hear, then what, this is because this is the only thing they have between us and the power now, is the question of what next. Let's get them out, then we decide after. We put them somewhere.
Even the Bible says, my people suffer because lack of what? Knowledge. They don't have the power, they don't understand the power they possess. And it's a very hard job to get people rallied up, to understand that these politicians, because if you look at it, just like Chief Negus have said, these politicians were Nyanza, Mlima, Western, most of them are manipulating their people, they're manipulating their constituents, members of the constituents, by using the money that they have. Kujeni mkule mchere, nitawanunulia, chukueni 200 hapa, so that we can, and they tell you, the problem is wale watu ile ukabila ingine ukabali. You see, but if you understand what the constitution says, what the government should be doing for you. I mean, Alfred Mutua, Hassan Joho was talking to Kenyans as if the Kenyans, even Alfred Mutua said that I don't owe you anything, and is a CS. You see what I'm saying? I was outraged, and no one was outraged with what he was saying. They just said, yeah, their jobs going to Saudi Arabia. So if you understand, have the information, the knowledge, my people suffer because of lack of knowledge. The Bible says so. That's why you suffer. So how do you educate them? Don't just tell us that Wavinya anaiba pesa hapa, sijui nani anaiba pesa. I mean, we know that they steal money. Kwani nani ajui Kidero aliiba pesa Nairobi? Nani ajui nani Hassan Joho aliiba pesa ninio? Who doesn't know that nani aliiba pesa? You see what I'm saying? We know that. Tell them something that they can actually do, a step, like go to the streets. Ninio, Gen Z showed us.
Let me tell you something.
Yes, tell me something.
You remember, even after, Abraham Lincoln, abolished, slave trade in the United States of America, that could have been perhaps in the 18th century, if I'm not very, very wrong. There are blacks in America who continue, blacks in America who continued living as slaves even up to the 20th century. You remember, it took, the young blood of people like Wakina Malcolm X, the people like Wakina Martin Luther King, to stand up for the people. To stand up for the people. I'm talking of up to 1950s, 1960s, the discrimination against...
Mr. Wangira.
Yes?
Mr. Wangira. Before 1950s, all blacks were slaves. Very few escaped and they were able to hide somewhere, but very few were free. Just point of correction.
I'm telling you, when was slavery abolished, by Abraham Lincoln, I'm telling you, look at the period between when the slavery was abolished and, when Wakina Malcolm X were coming in, Wakina Martin Luther King. So I want to use this one as an example here that, so long as, we want to put our faith, on all what I call, the old, wineskin of the type of Wakina Raila Odinga, Wakina William Ruto, these people will never liberate us as the people of Kenya. That's why, we need now to think of now having the type of Wakina Malcolm X, the type of Wakina Martin Luther King Jr. in the Republic of Kenya, people who shall propel this country, forward. Because, they say that, the Constitution, is a living thing. But for you to make it a living thing, you must keep, breathing life into it. Because, if you don't breathe life into it, then it remains dead. So, where we stand, as much as I'm telling you that, the 2010 Constitution is a progressive document. But so long as, there's no life in it, then, it's serving us no purpose. And where we stand, today, the document looks dead because it does not seem to have life, in the manner that, it should be having. And even if it has life, then it could be somewhere between, the ICU and high dependence unit. Because, where I stand, I don't see it serving the people of Kenya in the manner that it's supposed to serve them. So what do? We need to see young crop of leaders coming to stand for this constitution, to demand for what this constitution, tells us that we shall have. To say that we need to move from personalization of governance in the name of Raila Odinga or William Samoei Ruto to institutionalization of governance. Those are the struggles that we need to have as the people of Kenya. And, I don't see us attaining, this struggle, especially, when we still have, leaders who are leaders of cults like Raila Odinga in one section of a country. He's a leader of a cult, and is enjoying support from a large group of Kenyans. And then the question would be, how do we change their mindset to tell them that the direction this gentleman is taking you to is a wrong direction, that you need to take an about turn. So what the people of Kenya need to do is to take an about turn. I'll start, fighting for the institutionalization of governance. And that can happen when now we start, finding, genuine young leaders with fresh blood, who shall propel this country going forward.
In my view, I don't think age is an issue. You can be 155, but it's about how you think. What I noticed, especially after this Gen Z movement, is I think, and you can correct me, whoever can correct me, I think we were programmed to view Boniface Mwangi, Hanifa, Caswell, Morara. They were trying to program the Kenyan population to believe that these are the new young vibrant leaders that are supposed to take us, lead us in the future. Basically introducing them as the next Railas, the next Shikukus, the next Matibas. While they sound nice, they were out there, whatever, but they are basically continuing with the old tactics, colonial tactics that these people being colonial puppets, basically. That's why you see them now, they are, working for their masters. What I'm trying to say is this. A true grassroots revolutionary movement shall have men and women, whether young or old, that nobody knows about. They're not their usual suspect. That's why you hear people say revolution shall not be televised. These are people that shall not get the media attention as Boniface Mwangi or Caswell. These are people who nobody will know, but they will be out there bringing change in Kenya. We might not know them right now. If you see all these people who are glittering, all that glitters, the people who are out there, these are people that what's the word for the system wants you to accept. Remember how Caswell came out? He came out with a suit and a tie. Who goes to a mandamano with a suit and tie? Boniface Mwangi Gaito has been exposing him. Hanifa can't still tell us where he spent the money. Okay? Even Okiya, I'm iffy about him right now. Morara. You see what I'm saying? These are people that have been presented to you as, hey, these are the next leaders, because they know the old folks, people are tired of them. The Raila Odingas, Kalonzo, people are tired of them. So they are presenting us with the new. They're telling us, hey, these are the young folks that shall take us there. But I'm saying this. Yes, go ahead. Yeah.
Nikwambie hii mchezo imechezwa kutoka mbali.
Yeah.
Morara alipatikana kutoka kitambo. Nikwambia we are dealing with the next generation of CIA people, sleeper people. This is all of them. Nikwambia Masia ako wapi? Ako Finland. Kwenye alikuwa kwenda, right? Watu wengi. Boniface, same. This is why we cannot rely on mtu mmoja ni na mobilize. This is why wakati wa nini wa last demonstration, Morara anasema sijui anaenda wapi. Narok. Yeah. I think that's the last thing. If we can see through, we are dealing with a government with billions of money to derail us. Ndio tukue hapa tukue slaves wow. Because they're losing their other slaves. All of them. So the first thing, see watu. We have to make sure everything works. Ndio kama we ni judge na unafanya deal na watu wengine, the part that's supposed to investigate you and see your communication can see it and stop you from there. So everything have to work how it's supposed to be. Then whoever we put there, we are watching them. It's as simple as that.
I asked, what happened to the people who are making those posters Occupy State House? It stopped. Why did it stop? We had the momentum. Let's go occupy State House. Mara, Omtata is going to be the president. Now we are going to Omtata. Now it's IEBC. Let's reconstitute the IEBC. And we have pondered on the IEBC issue. We can all agree here that IEBC, even if iki institute, for us to even try to remove these MPs, it will be too late because the deadline is August 9th. We basically have 20 months to do it.
Nikuja hapa the other day tukaongea nikakushow hii kitu ni lazima ianze from juu. Ianze from juu. Ikuwe hidden few layers. Tunasema tunafanya hivi. They can plan. But kila mtu, this is what we are starting. All of us. We push them. Because watu nyumbani wanapata watu wanini. Wanapata mafamilia za watu, unathreaten watu. Ukithreateniwa nini, madhe yako ataudhiwa, sister yako ataripiwa, your nephew anaripiwa. Unajua, that's, we're still human. Unajua Kenya hakuna even any way you can fight back. So it has to start from abroad. The aggressive one.
Yeah. Chief Niggas is saying, Miguna said any movement centered around individuals will inevitably fail. The same thing Jared was telling him, Wangera was telling us here, is we've individualized our Ninio, which is true. It's true. So that's why I'm saying, to me, in my opinion, we'll have to have a popular revelation. Now, where does it start? It might start here. I don't know. I'm just disappointed. I usually look at X to see the next poster saying Occupy State House. People are still arguing about IEBC, Omtata, Wajakoya. Yani tunapelekwa. The news headlines are just popping up and everyone is shifting to it.
Shida ni moja.
Yeah.
If you notice well, most of, for example, X is where kila kitu naanza X. Don't be fooled. X ni naanza. Anyone who is prominent anajulikana, right?
Yes.
So the logical point will be somebody hajulikani, like somebody anaweza Google nani, and then you can tell. Kitu kaa hiyo. Alafu, but kila mtu anajua tunaanza kusupport hapa. push it. If it catches up, it catches up. Something like that. But wala tunajulikana, unajua hujui kama umetrutaniwa. Si nini? Kipa alikuja hapa akatuambia nini? Ametrutaniwa. Akaambiwa saa hii rudi.
Captain, you mean?
Captain, I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Because anajulikana.
By the way, what happened to him? I hope he's okay.
Miss Jui, I'm scared for him.
I try to call him, but his number is not going through, so.
Oh, missing connection yake. So if I had, I would have tried to reach out because I'm like, sijamuona kwa Ben, kwa Pastor, hapa. Anyway, sijamuona.
Yeah. So that's what's going on, ladies and gentlemen. Jared, you've been quiet. Are you asleep? Give us your renio kabla nifunge kama mnataka kulala.
You know, I agree with you that, you know, the problem is, and especially, you know, one of the undoing, you know, with the Gen Z movement, you know, was, you know, turning it into what I call, you know, a showbiz. You know, a showbiz that, you know, produced guys like Wakinaka Samuel. And, you know, revolutions are not showbizes. You know, this is serious business. And, you know, that's why I believe that, you know, we will need something organic, you know, that is not led by anybody, you know. Something very, very organic that will not be led by anybody. Something that will look more or less like, you know, being leaderless. You know, that's something that we know will get us out of this mess. But so long as, you know, there are few individuals who want to personalize, you know, or a struggle, then, you know, we get it wrong. And I believe that's where we got it wrong, even with the Gen Z, because we started seeing a few people who are coming out and, you know, trying to personalize, you know, the entire struggle. And again, I told you the other day that, you know, the triggering, you know, must be there. And, you know, where the people of Kenya, you know, stand today, I seem to see the pressure building up day after day. If you're following, even from ordinary wananchi on the streets in Matatis, you know, you'll feel some level of pressure that is building up every day, organically building up every day. And, you know, it will reach that.
Hello? Wangira's, your mic, I don't know, sauti yako imepotea.
I think ile kitu ningetaka tu kusema nini kwa Wangira, hakuna kitu inaanzanga organic. It has to start somewhere. Then kama the feel is the same, it just nika fire. You can't start a fire in a forest kama kuna nyesha. Right?
Right. I mean, that's what he means by saying organic.
But that's what I'm trying to say.
Yani mko na understanding hii kitu nafanyika and you just have the feeling.
The logic is the same. You can't start a fire in a forest wakati kuna nyesha na forest chomeke. But if you do that in a savanna, in the summer, that's a done deal. Temperature is right, the fuel should be right. Just logic.
Yeah. Ubaya, we are waiting for elections. Na elections, tutaita post-election violence, and it will all go tribal. Ndio maana I'm not into that, like tungoje mpaka 2027 ndio watu waanze kuchinjana blaming nyinyi ndio mlipigia Ruto, nyinyi ndio mlipigia sijui nani. Let it happen before then, with more majority of Kenyans understanding that the Ruto is a problem. But anyway, Wangira, do you have you were saying something? Wacha niwapatie your last submission kabla nifunge. I know you guys Saturday mko na mambo yenu.
Let me just call it a day from there, and perhaps we meet tomorrow.
Okay, thank you so much for being part of this. KK?
Mimi sina mengi la kusema. I think I pray to God and to our ancestors to show us the way, to our African gods. be specific.
Naona 999 huko inalia, sijui unakujiwa.
No, I'm good. Nikipata mtasikia hivyo tu. Nikipata mtasikia the same shit. No different.
Sasa. All right, tajaribu kutafuta captain. I don't know what's up with him. Mtampigia simu. I'll see where he at. I don't know where to this. Kuja tufurahisha hapo. All right, guys. Thank you so much. It's been real. Thank you so much, Chief Niggas. Everyone who has been part of this. James Mwangi, Chief Niggas, Green. Lord, everyone. Mr. Wangira, Laban, Miss Yani, Clean Black Sneakers. Everybody that has been part of it, thank you so much. I have to leave it here. I'm out. I'll see you guys later. Peace and blessings. Enjoy your Saturday night. Enjoy your weekend. Be safe. And God bless. I'm out.